Hey everyone, it's Rye, bringing you a video on civ balance. And I think this is a very controversial topic, and I'm sorry if people disagree with me, but at the end of the day, I actually don't give a fuck, so fuck you. Um, so this is my opinion, and I think it's important to caveat this with saying that there are multiple different approaches that people can take when they're discussing balance. I do think that there is a place for certain types of civs, but I don't think the game needs to be balanced around common indicators that people that don't really understand our game, our community make all the time. So I'm going to address them right now. In something like League of Legends, right? Let me pull this up real quick. So there's usually like yeah, there's something like this oftentimes, right? And usually they'll have like nerfs, buffs, whatever, updates, new. Like, this is great. And the way that they come up with this, that League is able to balance this, is they look at win rates in each section, in each elo, and they'll find something that like some stat that they're tracking that they're able to kind of assess as a problem, or maybe like they'll be able to fine tune something and they'll adjust accordingly. And look, League Balance is dog shit, and they have a fuck ton of like employees, ton of like infrastructure, right? Really big company, but they still do, in my opinion, they still do a good job balancing. They keep the game fresh, whatever. Some stuff is overpowered, but I think some stuff needs to be overpowered to have metas form. If everything's the even strength, then you can't really create metas, and you can't really have an intricate metagame. Everything is just on the table, so you can't really plan for anything. So metas can't really form. So I think having some pivotal strong civs, or in this case strong champions, is actually a good thing, and strong ways to win the game. So let's talk about why permaban civs are not overpowered. Okay, this is a very fundamental aspect that I want to touch on, and a lot of people don't understand this because in League, if a civ is if a champion's permabanned, or in Valorant, if a hero is used every single game, right? There's probably a problem, right? The difference is the way I think. If we're gonna stick with this League analogy, and I'm sorry if you don't play League, but I'll try to do my best to explain. If Mace and Zulu and Goths and Zulu are banned every game, right? And they are. That's not them being overpowered. That's because they are Yumi, and people don't like playing against Yumi, right? To bring this analogy back to Civ, these civs have very, very, very specific playstyles. They all force war pretty much. Goths actually to a less extent than all the others, than the other two, but they all kind of force war at a very given timing, and you as the opponent have to break your game to properly deal with them, right? That's the short. Similarly, but at the same time, the Civ is not strong, right? Right. Let's look at Zulu. Right. Let's look at Zulu. If we go to Zulu, so avoid jungle bias. That's good. Melee units play 50% less gold maintenance. All units require 25% less experience to promote. This is very, 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 very good for scaling. And this is also good for scaling. And if you're honor, it's very good for keeping your GPT alive when you're taking city states. Because everyone knows roads are extremely long for honor because, you know, traveling to CS is kind of difficult. Or roading to CS can be pretty tedious. Um, So this is actually pretty meaningful. All right. Hello? Can you? Dude, I swear to God, every time I make one of these videos, my fucking headset dies. It's so annoying. Okay, so their ability is fine. It's really good late game. Really good late game. But so far, they're pretty much a vanilla civ, except they get a little extra gold. Like, we're talking very, very minuscule amounts of gold. Okay? Let's keep reading. Replaces the barrack, grants Buffalo Hunter promotions to all pre-gunpowder melee units trained in the city, and allows units to earn Buffalo chest and line promotions. Horns, 1 movement, flanking bonus. That's insane. 10% defensive strength against ranged attacks. Very, very, very good. Chest, 10% open terrain, additional 25% flanking bonus, and an additional 10% defensive strength against terrain. Okay, it's pretty crazy. Like, you can see these flanking bonuses stacking. Another 10% combat. This is just pure 10% combat. 25% flanking bonus and 10% defensive strength. This is really good for war, right? Okay, and then let's look at Impy. Okay, gain 25% against gunpowder units, and then when initiating combat, perform range attacks prior to melee attack. Okay, so it's because the civ synergizes so well that makes the Impy untouchable. First time period. But the key I want to mention here, this civ is a vanilla civ. When you're heading towards your pikeman or your Impy, you're playing a vanilla civ. If you have bad land, it's worse than any other civ in the game. You're essentially just playing Yugoslavia. You are Yugoslavia until civil. Then you get landships, right? And then you're Yugoslavia again. I guess not really, because MPs are still good. My point is, the sim up to the attack is really bad. It's like, so is this a strong civ? I'd say yeah, it is strong, but it's strong because it forces a timing, and there's ways to play against that timing. In my opinion, like, I'll make a video when I do my Zulu ramble. I'll talk about how to defend Zulu. The best way to defend them, in case you're curious, is actually just to build walls and get Great Wall, because MPs can't take cities; they just die. Because you can't get flanking on cities. And that's why. So the best way to defend MPs is just build walls and stuff, and like put like shit in forts. And anyway, all this to say, there is counterplay. It does suck to play against. I don't think it's overpowered. Think about it from a logistical standpoint. If we're balancing based on what wins games, I don't think Zulu wins many games. Zulu gets a lot of CCs, but if we're looking at this from a tournament perspective, they're not going to win many games. They're going to blow someone the fuck up in medieval, right? If they're in the middle, they want to be in the middle of the map. They're going to blow up whoever's not building army. If you're not building army, you're next to Zulu, you're at risk of fucking dying. And if you die, then obviously Zulu is a huge target for the rest of the game. They're just going to get teamed and lose, right? So, and if they don't go at impies, they're still a vanilla civ. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Zulu itself is very strong at its timing. Before the timing, it's a vanilla civ. After the timing, it's kind of a vanilla civ until like air repair. I guess it's also strong into cav. Whatever. The point still remains that this civ is good, but it's good because people concede. If people didn't concede and they played every game out, I don't think Zulu would be that good. If everyone declared on Zulu the turn that they try to go for their MP push, they wouldn't be very good, right? Let's compare that to a civ like Moors, one of my personal favorite civs. Gain a 30% production bonus towards buildings in the medieval area, decreased to 15 in Renaissance. Their castle is Aztec. It's better than the Aztec fucking floating gardens, right? And then their unit's pretty mid. But this is probably one of the best UAs in the whole game. They're never banned. Why? Because it's something you can't see. It's something that you don't realize until you concede to them when they beat you to every single tech because they have all their buildings done and their cities are huge, right? That's the difference. These are civs that feel terrible to play against. You spawn next to Huns. Yeah, you're not in for a fun game. But your game becomes about stopping this player. And again, this is all in context. And I have to make this point. I think permanently banning a civ, like I permanently banned Spain. I think Spain was completely batshit broken, right? I will stand by that. Now, are they broken right now that they got moved to the coast? Probably not. I think they're probably in a good spot. They were here before. No one really thought them as too big of a problem. But am I still going to ban them? Absolutely. Because I don't like playing against a civ like this, where if they get a wonder or two, they just are in the best position of the whole fucking game just because they RNG flipped it. It doesn't take a genius to settle fucking Grand Mesa and have a 6-6-6 tile. So this to me is why certain civs are banned. This is also why, at the same token, you don't see civs like Sue. I mean, you kind of see Shoshone because Shoshone has the compo stuff, but regardless of the compo, like, let's say they didn't get the compo. I mean, actually, yeah, that's a bad example. Like, this is why you don't see Sue banned. Because other than Buffalo Hunters, which isn't that common of an attack, they're not crazy. Maria, this civ, used to get banned because it was broken, right? And we'll talk about what made them broken. But they're still incredibly strong, right? Maya is another civ that's still incredibly strong, but it doesn't really get that many bans. And it's because it doesn't feel like a Maya problem. It just feels like the person was simming well. What the fuck? And I want to make that clear. Like, I think a lot of the bans, when people ban civs, like, for instance, Arabia and Mongolia are another prime example. I don't think these units are particularly strong, but they feel terrible to play against. It feels awful to spawn next to these things to be like, okay, well, I have to do the fort. I have to do the pikes and fort thing. Okay, fuck. Like, that sucks. You don't want to do that. But does it feel bad to concede to, does it feel bad to concede to Italy after they just run away with the game? It probably feels less bad because at least you got to feel like you had a chance, right? And I guess that's kind of the long and short of like why permanently banned civs aren't overpowered. In general, I do think there are some civs that are just overpowered that are permanently banned. Like Russia, I think is overtuned. Like I think that is like without a doubt. It's hard to lose the identity of Russia without nerfing everything that the UA doesn't touch. But you can kind of see. But that being said, having a meta around certain civs, for instance, like Sue, like Russia, like the way they want to play wide. Like, imagine if Mysore was the best civ in the game, right? Well, tall things in general, tall play would be better. And let's say, like, in general, like, tall civs got favored. Well, that shakes up the meta. Something like Maria is not nearly as good anymore, and Mysore now becomes one of the best civs because tall is really good. Right now, we're in a more wide type meta where anything can really work, but ultimately, the wider you are, the better off you are for your sim perspective. So we're seeing a lot more strong civs that have more flexible UAs as the better civs. Now, I want to make a point here. What makes a civ strong is not something that can be universally recognized, and frankly, a lot of people don't really understand. What makes Aztec strong is pretty obvious. It's the pop, right? It's all the pop. What makes Maria strong, it's a little harder to put on. Obviously, it's the worker, right? But a beginner or a weaker player is not going to be able to utilize this well. They won't realize like the potential you have with Maria when it's good. What makes Maya strong? Well, the best player, I'm too scared to cover Maya in a ramble because it's too difficult, and no other good player would ever dare to say, yeah, let me cover Maya. No one. Because no one wants the liability of like trying to say how to play like the hardest civ in the game, right? Just because, and like, there has to be like this other point where, why do I say that Madagascar is a bad civ? I say it's a bad civ because it's pigeonholed into one play, right? It has to go piety. And I'm going to talk about this in my ramble video too. But it has to go piety. It wants to do some sort of like unity of profits type thing, right? It wants to do that kind of thing. Can it be played other ways? Sure. Is it as good? No. Okay. You could say the same thing about Zulu. It wants to go wide, or it wants to make this push at civil, right? Like it, regardless we want. And same with Macedonia. It wants to make this classical push with the Hataroi. Same with Goths. It wants to make the swordsman or longsword push, right? And that's why, in my opinion, they're balanced. Those civs are like, I don't think Zulu's that broken. First of all, I've seen so many weaker players fail Zulu attacks that, and it's not even funny. I've also seen, not only have I seen Zulu fail attacks, I've also seen people fail Macedonian attacks. I failed Macedonian attacks. So it's not like these are indefensible, but I've also seen them just completely run away with games, and it's very decisive. I do think if people played out the games to the like full length, they wouldn't be banned. They wouldn't even be like that strong, because you're not going to get an early, like the reason I play Zulu, if I'm being honest, is first of all, if I ever get in my draft, which never happens, but let's say I got in my draft, it'd be because I want that game to end in 2 hours, and I'm going to force a concede by 2 hours because I'm going to be on 3 empires, right? But if the game lasted 8 hours long, I'd probably lose because the other 3 people would team up on me and kill me. And they break all deals and stuff like that, right? So there is this whole, you have to play this game of, okay, am I going to take advantage of the unit? Is it going to make me too strong at the wrong time? Am I able to fight everyone, right? And this kind of thing. Actually, there's a tournament game I played. It's on Ashwin's channel. Really good game. But I was playing Maria. I killed Hoi Polloi on the coast with chariots. Then I was going to upgrade. I upgraded crossbows on turn 63 after killing Hoi, and it was going to go kill Miota, and then the whole team declared war on me. So there is counterplay to that, and I couldn't do anything, and obviously I went back to simming, whatever, and got teamed again. But the point is, does that make Maori broken? No. Because there's counterplay. Like, my early game was really strong, mostly because of the land, but also because of how I played it. But there is counterplay to these things. People just don't like doing them, right? Like, teaming's not really popular, and I'll make a teaming ramble at some point. So, yeah. All right. Are civs good in a vacuum or in practice? I think this kind of goes to the point of something like in the idea of what Chimera wants to do is really, really strong, right? Like, they grow really high. They have really good unit. They take a bunch of cities and stuff. But does it always work out? No. Why? Because land changes. First of all, other people might be playing like comparably strong civs that are stronger in certain periods, right? Imagine you're playing Chimera and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to my unit. But imagine you're next to Belgium, who has fucking Coconut as their regional. Well, you can't kill him anymore because his high roll is insane. Okay, and then you look to your other side, and then you see it's fucking, I don't, like another early game, like Huns. You see it's Huns. Well, like, you can't really go for him. In fact, he's probably going to try to kill you. So just because like a civ like theoretically is strong doesn't necessarily mean in practice they're always strong, or that because the way the game actually plays out is different than the way the game theoretically plays out. For instance, Brazil's another good example. On paper, Brazil is probably one of the best civs in the game. Like, just the amount of yields they get on a per tile basis is like nothing else. They have the potential to end the game faster than anyone other than like Futurism. But what makes them weak? What makes them weak is that they're vulnerable to dying to their neighbor who's observant. And you could say the same thing with everything, right? Ottomans, people think is really strong. Okay, well, not if you kill them before they get the unit. Because likely they're going to do some stupid like honor stuff where they're really wide and then they're vulnerable. Or they're going to do something where they're playing piety and then they're super susceptible early on. So understanding when, like, you can't expect to go into a game, late game, and be like, oh yeah, Chile, I forgot about that civ. Let me go like kill them real quick. It's not going to fucking happen. You're going to lose, right? The way you deal with Chile or the way you deal with Yugo is you deal with them before they get to that point. So just because a civ on paper is really good doesn't necessarily make him like terribly strong. Similarly, this is another point I wanted to make is I think there's this really big difference between balancing towards how good players play and how weaker players play. And let me explain what that is, what I mean by that. Let's look at the drafter again. I think it's universally agreed amongst like super strong, like amongst the strongest players that Sue is really, really strong. Shoshone is really, really strong. Maya is really, really strong. Right? These are all civs. I mean, I've made rambles on 2 of these. But they're all civs that when you think about it as a newer player, you're not going to realize the full potential. And you're not going to be able to execute as well as a really strong player. Right? For instance, the best example of this by far was Maria. Prior to the Maria nerf, Maria got a discounted monument on turn 0, not on pottery. The worker was discounted as well, and it had March in all of its land. But when new players tried playing the civ, it wasn't very good. Why? Because they lacked workers, they lacked the understanding of how early tempo works, and they were never able to really snowball their game. These early game civs that are kind of universally agreed as really, really powerful by strong players are not really, they're not that oppressive in like a random NQ lobby. If little Johnny's playing it. And the other thing I want to mention is a lot of people will say, well, if certain, like, why don't you just ban based on tournament results? Okay, well, that's a very like conceited idea because that assumes that the best, like, okay, a really good example is I won the finals of the first tournament as Ottomans, not Ottomans. Sorry, Hittites. Why did I think Ottomans? I won the first tournament as Hittites. Hittites is universally a pretty weak civ. Just because I won the finals or I won a really important game against all really, really incredibly strong players, that does not make them a good civ. Okay? There's so much more that goes into winning a civ game than the civ you're fucking playing. Now, I will say a good player that's playing Zulu will make Zulu look broken. But at that same player, if he's playing Germany or if she's playing fucking Congo, will also make that civ look crazy. So it doesn't, my point is, it doesn't matter. If the stronger player, whatever civ the stronger player is going to win, I'm still going to favor that stronger player, regardless what the other people are playing against, right? And I want to make that point especially clear because there is so much skill expression in playing your land and playing what's best for the game than it is playing your civ. So I'm not saying civs don't matter. I'm actually kind of saying the exact opposite of that. Let's talk about quickly about how changes are made. So in the Lekmod Discord, there's a select few people that are allowed, or not allowed, but we're given like a voice to kind of weigh in on these changes, right? So for instance, Honor got nerfed pretty hard after 31.4. That was my idea. I'm the biggest Honor advocate ever, and I knew it needed to get nerfed. The reason Discipline doesn't give 10% anymore is solely because I kind of wanted it not to. So obviously a lot of other people agreed on that. If you want in on that conversation, win the fucking tournament, and then you'll get invited. That's kind of how that works. But I think a lot of these changes go through a lot of different iterations. Why did Spain get nerfed? Because I was bitching about it for too goddamn long. Why did Tonga get nerfed? Because I said we all kind of agreed it was overpowered. Why did Norway get nerfed? Because it was kind of shown to have really massive swings that weren't fun to play against. Why did New Zealand get nerfed? This was actually my exact nerf idea. I knew New Zealand was overpowered. And like a lot of people wanted to nerf the destroyer, or like the The ironclad, I'd say absolutely not. Just nerf the early game like snowball potential, and I think it's fine. And I think it is fine. I think it's still a good civ. But I don't think it's as oppressive as it was. Pressure, like a lot of these nerfs are just coming up with like a way that he thinks is good, right? Some of these things I 100% disagree with. Like I can't, and that's fine. I think it's okay that I disagree with some of these things, right? Like this scaled spoils of war. I forget whose idea this was. This may have been mine actually. I think I requested that it's not the full tech. It's just a flat amount of science. That way it favors tall play rather than wide play because wide was too strong. But this is what they came up with, and honestly, this works too. This was like from 6 months ago. Like this initial idea. But my point is, all of these kind of checks and balances, there's a number of people that go through it. And frankly, we miss a lot of stuff. And frankly, like there's a lot of stuff, like I mentioned, like, that I just completely disagree with. Like, for instance, I've said this before, but why? Just why? This was my idea. Absolutely not. All of these were Kuba's idea, actually. Shout out to him. City of God. The Reformation, whoever, I forget who came up with this Reformation idea. I think it was Eep actually, but this was fucking brilliant. Like this is one of the best changes we've seen in a while. But all these kind of ideas are just from us thinking about it. And I think that's the most important thing is like, it's a very small team that's managing Lekmod, and there's an even smaller, and there's a small community that actually plays it. There's a lot of people that watch it, but there's not that many people that actually play it. So to understand like, oh yeah, just ban the things that are permanently banned, or ban the things that win in tournament. Well, there's a really small sample size, right? We might see Sue played 3 times in a whole tournament. Like that's not enough of a sample size to actually like ban it. Bombers got nerfed again. We've been pushing for that for a while, right? And I think there's a number of other things in here that are all like, a lot of these are good changes, but some of them like kind of missed the boat. But I think the point I'm trying to make here is that this game, it's a small community. It has a really loyal following. For the people that do play it and the people that watch it. But the main difference between what's strong and what's not is amplified by good players playing those things rather than the thing itself being good. Let's go back to Yumi. I don't think there's a civ that's a Yumi equivalent where it's brain dead, not fun to play against, and it always has a good advantage because of just the interaction it does. I don't think there's a civ like that. But I do think there are some civs reminiscent of it. That takes us to the next point, how are decisions made. It's a group setting. Eep ultimately has the ultimate decision. I think based on what I've talked to other people who've played Civ in the past, like this game is so much more balanced than it was previously. I think the game's in a great spot. I think some stuff needs to change. But I think in general, we're like, why did this get nerfed? This doesn't make any, India, yeah, they're super strong. Like what? But that being said, like this is a really good change. That being said, I do think we're in the right direction. We're moving towards kind of a common goal. I think the game is really progressing in a good way. The meta is strong. You can kind of play any type of strategy properly and be relevant in the game. And I think that's the ultimate goal. So hopefully this makes sense. Let me know if you have any comments. If you disagree with me, leave a comment below. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for watching.